Welcome, welcome to the Voices of Survivors with Kathryn Moody. If you're just tuning in for the first time, I'm Kathryn. I am a single mama of two. I have been through it with childhood abuse, with my own relationship being like all over the place, emotional abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse. And I'm like on the other side now, thankfully. Um, Pretty far into my healing journey. There's, of course, always layers to that. So I'm excited to continue that as well as share my voice and help share the voices of other survivors. Because through sharing our stories, we really get to not only heal ourselves, but we get to help others who are maybe in this situation or are getting out of the situation or are trying to further their healing journey after this. So it helps to know that you're not alone in those situations. And I'm super excited today. I have Keira with us, and I just want to thank you for being on here. And how about you go ahead and share some of your experience with abuse?
Thank you, Kathryn. It's such a pleasure to be here, and what a powerful conversation to hold in this on this platform here, where my hope by coming here before I start talking about my story, my hope by coming here and sharing is that if you are out there and you hear this story, that you will feel that you have a safe space to share your experience and perhaps get some tools to help you on your healing journey. So my experience really started at the age of 5. My father went through a relationship with cocaine that led to suicide. And one of my earliest memories was witnessing my mother telling my father that we were leaving, and he was not wearing a shirt and tears were streaming all the way down his chest. And he picked me up and held me and said, "I'm never going to let you go." Now, about a month later, he took himself out of the world. And so I went through a lot of layers through my childhood around acceptance, anger, sadness. And meanwhile, this sent my mother into a deep depressive cycle, which led to several unhealthy relationships, some of them severely physically abusive, a lot of feelings of not feeling safe. And what this led to for me was a sense that my self-worth was somewhere in a relationship with someone else. And watching what went on with my parents and what I saw going on around me with a lot of broken families, I feel like we grew up in an epidemic of broken families. I was rare that I had a dead parent, but very few people I knew had a solid relationship as their example. And so I thought as I entered my teen years, I thought that I was supposed to want sex. And that was where I was going to be proving to myself that I was worthy, as if somebody chose me to have sex with. Like saying that now, I'm just like, oh my gosh, honey, how could you even imagine that? But that was really where I thought I could find proof that I was worthy. I really thought I was unattractive, unworthy, unwanted, unwantable, even as a youngster. And this led to some really painful engagements with sex as a teenager. What, looking back, I would coin rape, even though at the time I I allowed it, which was, I think, the most painful part, is forgiving myself for not stopping something that was hurting me.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it led to a 20-year relationship with someone who I did not choose to be with, but allowed myself to be chosen. And I have 4 beautiful children that came through that relationship. And it was a long struggle of learning to value myself enough to recognize, like you mentioned, there were different forms of abuse that you experienced. And sometimes we don't recognize abuse when we think that's how love is expressed. And I think I was
Yeah.
around that so much as a child that I didn't even know what to ask for until much later in my journey. Yeah, so that, I think I'll just say that much for now, because I want to
Yeah.
have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you talked about that. And I had a similar experience with realizing, and it was actually quite recently that I actually fully admitted and accepted to myself that it was sexual abuse inside my marriage. Because I grew up similarly. I just thought, that's what you do. Like a good wife just, has sex. That's what I'm here for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like I just recently realized so many times, I'm going to do another video more in depth on this, but so many times I realized how many times I was guilted into it. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really want it, but
Mm.
I didn't feel like I could say no. And yeah, that forgiveness part and forgiving self of the things that you allow inside these relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know any better because, yeah, a lot of times people grew up in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, with that said, I know you said that the relationship lasted 20 years. What was like the final straw that got you out of that relationship?
Well, it's funny because, like I said, when I was young, I thought I was unattractive, and nobody that I wanted would actually want to be with me. And like, at least somebody likes me. And so I might as well, like, I would look out of um, this codependent abusive relationship, and I would look out and I would see, like, no, I don't see anybody doing any better. I was like, well, at least I don't have to deal with that. At least I don't have to deal with that. But then one day I was working Qigong events. I'm a Qigong instructor, a yoga instructor. So I have a lot of long background in self-study and healing practices. And I was at an event, and I met this guy who I was kind of vibing with. Wasn't thinking any, like, we were going to have an affair or anything, but I was just kind of vibing with him, getting to know him. And he says to me, "Are you married?" And I said, "Oh no, I've never been married, but I've been with my kid's dad for 20 years." And he was like, "Oh, good." And then, like, later, I was like, he asked me if I was married. That means he liked me. That means maybe I am attractive. And this is 38 years old that I actually realized that I could be attractive to someone that I was interested in. And at this time, we'd actually done a lot of healing in this relationship, and we were getting along better than we ever had. And that was when I realized that it wasn't actually something I could work on and fix, that what I really needed to be able to do is value and honor myself. And so I was actually able to walk from that relationship with love and express my feelings to the other person with love, because usually in these abusive relationships, we're dealing with past abuse traumas on both parts. Both parties are trying to process through these, playing it out again. And so I think that was like that was the big wake up call moment for me, though, was like, oh, I actually get to choose what happens in my life. I get to be the one who decides if this is the right path for me. And that was the first step to all these other things that I alluded to. Because then after I left the relationship, I went and sat on the side of a mountain. I lived in a fifth wheel trailer by myself for about 6 months, and went through all of the guilt, all the way back to like middle school, childhood guilt, and really forgave myself, which is, I think, that was like the huge first step for me to actually healing and owning my own power and my own ability to choose. Because that was, I think, for so long, that was actually what kept me stuck, was letting other people choose. And then I thought I could abdicate responsibility for my life by saying, oh, but I didn't choose that. I just let him choose for me. And that was, I think, the big thing for me, was realizing, oh, wait a minute, that was a choice. When I let him choose for me, I chose ignoring myself. I chose pushing down my own feelings. And now I want to choose honoring myself. And it really was like, that was, I think, the biggest shift for me, is realizing that I had to own all of those experiences, my part in them. There are times when we can't do anything about it, but there are times when it's like, oh yeah, I abdicated my choice and I don't have to do that anymore. I'm a big girl now.
Yeah. Coming from, and I see that a lot in different abusive situations where, like, really it is about just giving your power away and ignoring those red flags. And it's absolutely a choice. And that's where the empowerment comes afterwards, when you get to make the choice to walk away and choose different and choose better, because you do deserve better. And we're worth so much more than what the other unhealed person is giving us. So like that codependency aspect right there with people pleasing was huge for me, realizing that, like, oh, I don't have to be a people pleaser anymore. I can just be myself and actually choose what I want to do, versus having all the power given away to everybody else, just to get that false sense of security. And oftentimes this stems from an abandonment issue. And that's the root of it, is the abandonment, the fear of abandonment. That often does come from childhood, like with losing your father, or having your mother going off and not really like making healthy parenting choices to be there for you, to support you. And in my case, I mean, like, I've forgiven my parents because they were going through crisis. And like with my younger sister being in the health condition that she was in and out of the hospital. And of course, my mom had to be there for her. And I was 2 at the time when she was born. So it was from 2 on. And like, I mean, I get why she had to do it, but it doesn't make it any less traumatic for the child that I was. So going through that whole process is huge. It's a lot of layers.
The forgiveness layer, the layers of forgiveness are pretty amazing. I remember when I realized, when I was 33, and I was learning how to speak my truth to my mother, because that was actually a really, really hard thing for me, because she is still so sensitive, and I'm so sensitive about that factor. I hold no grudges towards her because I do understand she was doing the best she could in a really, really difficult situation. And like you said, that doesn't change my experience or my need to do my healing around that experience. And so learning to just be more open and honest was really challenging for me. And that was when I realized, that was the time frame I realized I hadn't really forgiven my father for leaving. I thought I had. I'd been through, it had been almost 30 years. I've been through every aspect of this. I've totally forgiven him. But then I went through healing through touching a point in my throat. And it brought up all these emotions, and I realized it was around him. I happened to have an acupuncture appointment the very next day, and I was doing some allergy elimination process, but I said to my acupuncturist, I said, something has come up for me and I really want to clear it all the way. I could feel this opportunity, like it had lifted, but it was swirling around. And so she put me on the table in a meridian balancing. And that was when I realized that I hadn't actually forgiven my father. My father was my birth attendant. I was born at home when it wasn't a thing. And my father saved my life because I had the umbilical cord around my neck. And I was like, oh my gosh, he saved me from strangulation. And then 5 years later took his own life through strangulation. And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't forgiven him. And then I suddenly, I was like, I don't think I want to. I don't know if I can. I don't know how to do this. And then I said to myself, Keira, you asked for this because you want it. Now's your chance. And so I imagined his face in front of mine, the way I remember him. And I looked into his eyes and I said in my mind, I love you. I love you. I forgive you, until finally it was true. And in that moment when I felt it was true, his face transformed into my child face. And I was looking into my own eyes. And so then I was like, that was great. I'm going to do that with my mom too. so I was like, let's go all the way. So I did imagine my mom's face. I did that with my mom, and her face transformed into mine. And then I looked into my own childhood eyes and I said to her, you didn't do anything wrong. And I really feel like that forgiveness piece that can be so challenging, especially when we look at really severe traumas. There are, things that are unforgivable, and we don't forgive because it's okay that somebody hurt you. I just want to make this really clear for anyone listening that's in this forgiveness phase. We don't forgive because it's okay. We don't say, it's okay that you hurt me. That's not what it means.
Right.
We forgive because we don't want to carry that trauma anymore. We want to walk free of the trauma. And when we hold the resentment for somebody putting their trauma onto us, then we're carrying their trauma for them. And when we release that, it's like we release them to be able to heal, as well as especially releasing ourselves to really be able to heal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like they say, not forgiving somebody and holding that anger and resentment is like holding a hot burning coal, expecting the other person to get burnt.
Yeah.
And it really is just about us completely, and needing to free that emotion from the body, because the body keeps the score whether we like it or not. And like a huge thing that came up that is kind of interesting that you brought up about the neck and the strangulation. Like, I recently learned how to swallow pills. And for years I told myself I couldn't, and I had tried so many times because there were certain things that at certain times I was like, okay, I need to take this supplement, but I can't swallow this pill. And it didn't hit me until recently somebody said that it could be trauma related. And I'm like thinking back and I'm like, okay, but I haven't been like abused. Nobody's like strangled me. There's no surgery. What is this? But then I started connecting the dots with the energetics, because the throat chakra has to do with, your voice and not speaking your voice or speaking your mind. And as a chronic people pleaser, I just shut up because I was told I was too loud, or I was told I was talking too much, or whatever. And I internalized that. And the body kept the score, but I didn't remember. Like, it was just, I can't swallow pills. My throat would close up, my tongue would get in the way, whatever. Like, it's just the way my body works.
And so are you saying now that you have learned to speak your truth, you can swallow pills? That's pretty awesome.
I'm getting there. Yep. I learned how to swallow the pills. I was like, okay, well, if this is a trauma thing, I'm not letting that hold me back anymore. I'm going to clear this. I'm going to do this. I can swallow the pills. I can open my throat. I can speak my truth, which is what I'm doing through this podcast, helping everybody else share their voice as well. So.
I love that. That reminds me of a poem I wrote, which I can't remember, so I'm not going to try to recite it. But there was a similar thing with swallowing your words. Like, that was what was reminding me. Like, when you are swallowing your words, how can you? It was something about how can I speak what I can't swallow, or so there was something about the speaking and swallowing in the poem. I'm going to have to go back and look, because a lot of my healing journey expressed in poetry. And I think whatever your medium of expression, it's so beautiful that you come here and create a public forum where you can fully express yourself and offer that to others who have been going through a similar journey. So beautiful.
Absolutely. All right. Well, in closing this, I would like to ask just one more thing. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's still going through it? And like learning how to heal from this.
So the thing that popped into my mind actually surprised me a little bit, but I think what I want to say is, if there is something that's calling you, take action, because it may be that, like Kathryn or myself, you're letting other people make your decisions, or letting your traumas keep you from taking a leap into taking more responsibility for your life. I found that when I chose to really just take the leap of faith, because I think often what happens is we think, oh, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I don't have the skill set. And now I have proven to myself that I can take better care of myself than anyone else ever could. I can take better care of my children because I'm on my own taking care of myself, and my energy isn't being pulled in 5 million directions at once because I'm so worried about the people pleasing that you mentioned. So I would say my biggest advice is that thing that you know you need to do, whether it's leaving a relationship, taking a step into maybe a scary investment into yourself, an action that you know is going to help you, but it's scary. That's the thing that is scaring you right now. That's the thing that you need to do. So if you're watching this and you're like, I really am scared, I feel like, Kathryn, you have created such a safe, sacred space here. So I really encourage reaching out to Kathryn, or if you feel drawn to me, reach out to me and say, hey, I've been wanting to take this step and I'm really scared. Could you just like hold some space for me? Because it is scary and we don't have to do it alone. I think that's
Yeah,
the biggest thing to remember. You are not alone. We are in
absolutely.
this together and you can do it.
Thank you. Thank you. That was great. And this has been such a beautiful conversation. I'm so thankful that you stepped in and are here. So, in closing, like she said, reach out to one of us if you need support. I've also got a form that will be dropped below that you can fill out for support, or if you're ready to step up and share your voice. And that form also contains a link to some resources for you, whether you're going through it and in the thick of it, whether you're just getting out, or whether you're trying to further your healing journey. It's all right there on the Google Doc. So I am so thankful for this space and for you sharing your light with us, Keira, and I will see you all next week.
Mm.